All right, so first I'll just say that this is for 10th grade or high school biology class. The unit would be heredity. And background information that they would have had already is we've already covered cells, meiosis, mitosis, some chemistry, as well as the beginning part of heredity unit, which is like genes and traits and how things are passed down from generations. So, all right, does anyone have any words they would use to describe this sculpture here? Any descriptive words?
Spirals.
Spirals, okay, good.
Helix.
Okay, good job. I like that. There's some colors in there too. You can see there are some linear lines as well showing connections between the spiral. So would anyone guess what this sculpture represents? DNA? Good job. So what does the shape of this and DNA have in common?
They're both helical.
Okay, good job. Yeah, they're gonna spiral, and as well as the bond connections between the two different sides of the spiral. All right, and this is a sculpture outside the Hall of Science, Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley, California. I believe it's close to the university. Check it out if you want to. It's a pretty cool place if you're ever in the area. Go to some museum. All right, so today what we're going to do is I brought some notes and some introductory elements to DNA and its structure. We'll talk about base pairing, and then we'll also talk about, or we'll actually create a model of DNA. The objectives, you guys will be able to label the parts of DNA and describe the structure and its general shape, model the DNA molecule, we'll demonstrate base pairing when we make the model, and then we'll also be able to describe the relationship of genes and DNA. All right, so DNA, first of all, the name DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. There's just a general picture of it. I also included RNA. We'll get to that later, but you may hear it in your, you may read about it in your book briefly before we get to it. So I want you to understand that ribonucleic acid is RNA, and it's a single strand. So you have your DNA as a double strand. Here you can see that there's only one side of the DNA. And both are responsible. One is responsible for carrying, and one is responsible for, transmitting the information that it holds. All right. So what is a nucleic acid? We have deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid. They are large, complex molecules composed of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus. Just a general, give you an idea of what DNA has to do with genetics or genes. The genetic code is the way in which our cells, our body knows what to do and how to function, and DNA is a big part of that. And then here's the actual definition from our textbook, but it's a little in-depth, so I'm not going to go over it, but I want you to be able to see it. We'll get back to that later. And so, what carries this genetic code?
RNA?
RNA? Well, RNA transmits it, but DNA is actually the structure that carries it. Okay, well anyway, so what I'm trying to get here with this PowerPoint slide is that DNA codes and tells our cells what to do, and then cells are actually what build our body. So we all know that cells make tissues, tissues make organs, organs make systems, systems make bodies. So DNA is the very foundational unit to life. Oh, those sounds, sorry. All right, so are genes and DNA the same thing? No? Yes? Yes? Why would you say yes?
Because DNA is the genetic code, and that's what a gene is.
Okay. Yes, that it is the genetic code, but they are not the same thing. A gene is a sequence within DNA that codes for a specific trait. DNA is the whole story, the whole picture. So the best analogy that I have is if you take a book. The book has chapters. Each chapter gives you something new, something different part of the book that tells the story. So DNA is your story, and genes are your chapters that build to make the story. Does that make sense to everyone? Questions? No? Oh, there we go. Genes are a segment within DNA molecule. They code for proteins, and proteins are what make traits, and traits are what make us who we are and what makes us different from one another. And genes are just a small piece of the total DNA structure. So like I said, chapter, just a small part of the whole story. All right, so we'll just talk about the shape here. So we've already covered that it's a helix. It's a double helix because you have two different sides here. And it's a twisted ladder, per se. Kind of looks like a ladder, but it's spinning, helical. It consists of two parts, at least the backbone here does. It's going to have a phosphate and a sugar, and on the next slide we'll get into that. And then you have your nitrogenous bases here that hold the two different backbones together. Okay, so here's our nucleotide, which, let me show you really quick, sorry. The nucleotide is each side, so like if you were going to take these two nitrogenous bases and look at the backbone, those make up a specific, like a single nucleotide. Alright, so you have your phosphate group and base, here the nitrogenous bases, and then you have your sugar, which is deoxyribose sugar. That's where you get the name for the first part of DNA. And your nitrogenous bases, you have adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. These two are pyrimidines, and then the top two are purines. And then they base together, but they don't, like these don't base with one another. They base with an or they connect with an opposite one. Okay, and so base pairing is an attraction between the two bases, and it's a hydrogen bond that bonds them together. Hydrogen bonds are weak, keep that in mind. And then we have, in a little bit of history, Erwin Chargaff. He discovered how the nitrogenous bases are bonded together. And he discovered that adenine, here, bonds with thymine, and then guanine bonds with cytosine. We've got to reference back to that when we build our DNA molecule. All right, so back to this picture. This is my formative part of the review is how can we correlate and assign words or ways to describe how this is representing DNA? We already talked to one. So what are these? What is this?
Bases.
Yes, it's a base. Good. It's a nitrogenous base. And you have another one on the other side. So this here is your hydrogen bond that's putting the bases together, keeping them connected. And then each side, each base has a backbone here, which is a phosphate and a sugar group. It's a sequence of those two that keep these bonded together. I'm going to kind of skip over this just for the sake of time, but I would give my students some background on how DNA was, like the structure was found and reference that. It's an important part of history and society and how they can base it back to career plan and whatnot. All right, so review. What carries the code for life?
DNA.
DNA, good job, Simon. All right. And then what is gene compared to DNA? You can use the analogy. Yeah, small parts, good. Chapters. All right, so then for the review, the other part of the review we're going to do, we're going to cover the structure of DNA and then also what kind of pairing. We have two things that come together. What are they called?
Bases.
Bases. Good job. All right. So for, you have your little baggies in front of you. And for safety today, the toothpicks, I know they're just wooden toothpicks, but be careful. We're going to be using pressure with them, so don't poke yourself. Don't eat anything until I've said so. And also, when you do eat them, the toothpicks may have a little bit of splintering, so if when you're sticking the marshmallows on them, you just might want to watch out for that. And no horseplay. Don't throw the marshmallows, please. Let's keep it, mature in here. All right. Okay. So does anyone? You want to take your stuff out of your bags? Anyone have an idea of what the licorice Twizzlers represent?
On backbone?
The backbone, good job. And what parts of the what are the two parts of the backbone?
Phosphate and
Sugar. Good job. Yes. All right. So on your desk, set them where you think that they should go when you're looking at a DNA molecule. All right. Good job. So you have two strands. DNA is double-stranded. Good job. What do you think the marshmallows represent? Good job. And what bases do we have? I'll kind of help you because I know we kind of briefly went over it. Does anyone remember any of the names of the bases?
Bonnie.
Bonnie. And when you do this lesson, if you do it, and when you look at your notes when I get them to you, please don't all this pen. Do you ever even see that?
No,
But you have them
up on the
Yeah, they're on the
slide.
But anyways, in my notes, I think I assigned different colors to different things. So in your PowerPoint, it's on your notes, blah, blah, blah. Just match them up right. So adenine is pink, cytosine is green, thymine is orange, and guanine is yellow. Now, do you guys remember which ones pair with which ones? Which base bonds with the other one? Pink and yellow. Pink and yellow. What is pink and yellow? No, but pink, the adenine. Let's use the actual term instead of the colors. Sorry if I'm confusing anyone. Adenine actually bonds with thymine. So which color is that? Orange. Orange. Okay. So line up your pink and your orange. And what does your toothpick represent?
The hydrogen.
Yeah, your hydrogen bond. Yep. So if you have one on you put your pink on one side and then your orange on the other side, and then you connect to what? Yes. Yep. And everyone has different color. You have an array of marshmallows because I don't need you to have a specific sequence. You can do it in any which way you want. And how that works is sequences in DNA, they're all random. They all have a different order that will code for specific proteins. So it doesn't matter which way you want to do it. Just make sure that you're pairing the right bases. Pink and orange. So then we have green and yellow will go together at cytosine and guanine. And just real quick, we're kind of done with this. Misconceptions that I covered is that DNA and genes are the same thing. They're not the same thing. Also, often students will confuse and think that DNA doesn't contain genetic information, which in fact it's the basis behind genetic information. Well, it holds it all together. And then also 2 types of nucleotides make up DNA. That's not right. There's only one nucleotide, but there's 4 different bases. That's it.
Thank you.